Last time we started the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. We explained that how this is building upon the blocks of the Torah, the foundation of this community and of their faith, that Jesus hasn't come to abolish the Torah but to fulfill it. That just like the other people, the Pharisees and scribes, it's building upon the teaching of the Torah and offering wisdom for the world that they find themselves in that day. And that is essentially what Jesus was about. And he started with that vision, this vision of the Beatitudes, for bottom up movement that was going to bring transformation that Jesus was bringing and is inviting us to be part of it. He goes on to give those examples of what it might mean to live in this vision. Those examples that start off, you've heard that it was said in the Torah. Now I'm telling you, as we build upon that foundation, that we are to do these such things. And these such things, in essence, was about using our power to bring honour, using our power to bring about peace. And so today we've come to our reading, and it begins that sense of hypocrites. Be especially careful when you're trying to do good, so you don't make a performance out of it. It might be good theatre, but the God who made you won't be applauding. When you do something for someone else, don't call attention to yourself. You've seen them in action, I'm sure. Play actors, hypocrites I call them. Treating prayer meeting and street corners like a stage, acting compassionate as long as someone is watching, playing to the crowds. They get applause, true, but that's all they get. When you help someone out, don't think about how it looks. Just do it, quietly and unobtrusively. That's the way your God, who conceived you in love, working behind the scenes, helps you out. And when you come before God, don't turn that into a theatrical production either. All these people making a regular show out of their prayers, hoping for 15 minutes of fame. Do you think God sits in a box seat? Here is what He wants you to do. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. Just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. The focus will shift from you to God, and you will begin to sense His grace. The world is full of so-called prayer warriors who are prayer ignorant. They're full of formulas and programs and advice, peddling techniques for getting what you want from God. Don't fall for that nonsense. This is your Father you are dealing with, and He knows better than you what you need. In prayer, there is a connection between what God does and what you do. You can't get forgiveness from God, for instance, without also forgiving others. If you refuse to do your part, you cut yourself off from God's part. When you practice some appetite-denying discipline to better concentrate on God, don't make a production out of it. It might turn you into a small-time celebrity, but it won't make you a saint. If you go into training inwardly, act normal outwardly. Shampoo and comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face. God doesn't require attention-getting devices. He won't overlook what you are doing. He will reward you well. And so today we've come to our reading, and it begins that sense of hypocrites. Now, it's a difficult word for us all, because we feel that pressure and tension of not to be hypocrites, but it comes from the word hypocrites, which means putting on a performance, wearing one mask and then another mask, putting on a performance. And so don't put on a performance pretending to be part of this new way, this vision of the Beatitudes, but be true, be honest, be honouring. Don't put on a mask of honour and then not be. And so it's saying that really about these examples of using your wealth, your money, of prayer and fasting, using these things not to put on one mask and putting on a performance before God, but to be true, to be honest, and to honour people and to honour God. And so He's challenging us that actually we are not to make God's love a trophy. He's encouraging us not to care what other people think, but for us to be generous, for us to fast and pray honestly and genuinely before God in response to his love. Now, of course, in our society, it feels sometimes that we're encouraged to wear different masks. We're encouraged at times for our faith to be something private that we do in our own personal lives, that we do on Sunday, do at church. But in other contexts, we're encouraged to wear other masks. We're encouraged in all people, in a way, to live hypocritical lives, wear one mask for one thing, wear another mask for another. But Jesus is encouraging us and fighting us and challenging us not to do that, but to be part of this vision, to live this way of life that is to honour all people. And in the middle of this, we also hear about how Jesus teaches us to pray. We hear those famous words about the Lord's Prayer. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Amen. And what's really important here, when we hold the whole Sermon on the Mount, the Lord's Prayer is right at its centre, at its heart. Jesus is encouraging us how to pray, but also saying prayer is central, that we are dependent upon God, and for this vision to come true, for heaven to come on earth, the realm of the skies to come to earth, or we're dependent upon God. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moss and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moss and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Why do you worry about clothes? See how flowers in the field grow. They do not labour or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendour was dressed like one of these. That is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire. Will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I remember when I left home, I could carry everything with me, but now I need a large lorry to carry all my stuff. Yet Jesus said, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. Feels like I've got good at storing up stuff. And I wonder how many of us dread that idea of a move, because we have to go into our garages or into our lofts and deal with all that stuff we've put out of sight. In my house, we are entering the season of clearing stuff in order to make way for new stuff. It will soon be my daughter's birthday, followed by my son's birthday, and then the grand finale of stuff, Christmas. This seems, of course, though, absurd, doesn't it? Because Christmas really is not about that climatic celebration of stuff, the stuff of materialism, but the stuff really about the birth of a boy, birth of Jesus, whose family is homeless and soon they will become refugees. The story of Christmas is the opposite of stuff. We've made it all about stuff. Yet it's not just about our materialism stuff, the things that we buy for ourselves or our loved ones that gives us that moment of happiness. But it's also about our savings, our own pensions and investments. But, it's not to say these things are bad. Of course they're not. Buying stuff for your loved ones isn't bad. But it is when we prioritise perhaps those things and that a certain lifestyle over others. And so when we prioritise buying stuff that distracts us from the issues of the things around us in our world today, and when we prioritise the stuff of our savings, investments, that can lead us maybe to prioritise and collude with unjust things such as climate change and war, where our investments might go into. So Jesus goes on to teach, the eye is the lamp of the body, but if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. Now, the Greek here for unhealthy eyes actually means stingy eyes, in other words. So beware of stuff. Beware of our toys, our electronics and cars. Beware of our savings, pensions, investments. Because it's easy for our eye to be on stuff and the storing up of stuff that can consume us, make us stingy and distracted from the experiences of others. Instead, Jesus teaches us to store up yourselves treasures in heaven, the treasures in the skies. For if you are generous, your whole body will be full of light. So this is the stuff of compassion, generosity and justice. It's the stuff of this vision in the Beatitudes. It's the stuff of right relationships with God and one another. It's the cultivation of these qualities that will also lead us to the renewal of our world. Yet capitalism, the idea of more, can lead us maybe to conclude this is all pie in the sky vision, this kingdom of the skies. It's all well and good, but you know what? There isn't enough. How can we be generous if we are in danger of running out? We often feel like we are running out, that there is a lack of stuff, scarcity. We hear messages, if we don't buy more, if we don't make more money, then we will become poorer and everything will become worse. So in our drive for more stuff, more wealth, we become fearful of scarcity. We worry that sharing will lead to not enough. And so greed pounces upon us in our anxious pursuit to have more. And so we believe that we must prioritise my life, my family's life, and my nation's life, because there isn't enough for all. We must perhaps make Britain great. In response, Jesus concludes by teaching we can't serve both God and money, because the stuff we prioritise, the stuff we store, is the stuff we become. So if our drive for more has filled us with an anxious belief that we do not have more, but also that we've not done enough and are not in enough in ourselves, this anxiety drives our idol of self-sufficiency that competes with the other in order that I may prosper, because there's not enough and I need to do more because I'm not enough myself. So we begin to live in denial, believing what we have done and who we are is dependent upon my achievements. It denies the truth, though, that our stuff has come at the expense of others. We live in a society where the gap seems to be ever greater between the wealthy and the poor. It often comes at the expense of others. And so it denies the truth that we are dependent upon God. The Lord's Prayer, the centre of this reading, that we are dependent upon one another and this world. So Jesus responds to this fear of anxiety by saying, don't worry about your life. Sounds, doesn't it, oversimplistic. Do not worry. Sounds too simplistic in a world that lauds the mastery of complexity. Jesus goes on to say, do not worry, because God provides for the birds of the air. Here's the truth. God has provided a rich world that is perfectly adapted for sustaining life. There is enough for all. But we must let go of our anxiety of scarcity and our fear that we have not done enough or not enough, because it drives our greed for more stuff. So Jesus ends his teaching with a reference to Solomon's temple, which represents the glory days of ancient Israel. The temple was magnificent. Solomon himself was clothed in the best finery in the world, and his kingdom flowed with gold and silver. Yet Jesus insists the splendour of flowers, even though they do not labour, far surpass Solomon, because this brief period of strength and prestige was ruined by Solomon's greed and his idolatry. It is a story that reminds us that storing up stuff, the pursuit of our wealth and our anxiety that we do not have enough, we have not done enough, and are not enough in ourselves, will lead us to ruin. Solomon's idolatry of greed ruined a nation, and we are ruining our world. What we store is what we become, and we are becoming a world of plastic and concrete, stripped of natural resources, consumed by poverty. Yet life that does not worry about stuff, wealth and becoming enough, prioritizes generosity, compassion and justice, the things of the skies, the realm of the skies. And these things, well, they might just sustain a world, rich in diversity that provides food and shelter for all. So let us listen to Jeremiah's story from Liberia. Last time we heard about the struggles of Liberia since the Civil War. Now we'll hear Jeremiah and others who are trying to live generosity by thinking of what they can give back.
At the time, I was a refugee in Ghana, then at the Budubron refugee camp, that's in the central region of Ghana. And specifically, it was in June of 2000 when the UNHCR decided to sever all support to Liberian refugees in the diaspora on ground that Charles Taylor was then in power. So it was a way of forcing or encouraging Liberians to return to Liberia. So when they seized their support as the biggest donor of supporter to refugees in the camp, life in the camp became very, very hard. And their withdrawal of support exacerbated the situation in the camp. And some of us, like me and Jeremiah, went to Ghana purposely to go to the US, but that did not work out, and it became kind of frustrating. So most of our time was like sitting around, drinking sports and lecturing and talking some, I would say, useless politics. But when the UNHCR withdrawal support happened, we started to ask ourselves some questions. What can we do? Are we going to sit in the camp and just cry a cry of self-pity or do something? Then came the turning point I was one day walking down somewhere on the refugee camp called Broad Street, you know, when a friend of mine, Richard Seat in particular, met me and asked me a question, Jeremiah, what's the essence of going to school? You are a university graduate, what the essence? My mother, who I love so dearly, she was very much illiterate, but she was very much passionate about education. So she wanted me to go to school. You know, she had to go and beg the Catholic nuns, the Catholic priests, and the one, Father Albert Cooney, he's a U.S. citizen. Talk with Albert. Albert accepted. Said, okay, Jeremiah, as long as you can go on a roll, you know, we'll keep the scholarship on, but you have to come to the church every Saturday to cut some grass, you know. So fast tracking the story, from grade 7 to grade 12, I had some work to do on the campus, the church compound, and then working in the library. I was just all over, but you have the school degree. You know? So my mother became a driving force. So the issue was, what can I give back to society? Because I know clearly she was begging around to get me to school. She was asking people for help. There are others out there who don't have it. What can we pay back? What can we give back? That is the motivating thing, you know, basically for our adult literacy kind of work. I need to do something to make myself useful to society. How can we do that? There are women in the camp with children, other friends, they are facing difficulties. Can we organize something? We quickly found a makeshift library and brought together some street kids. We started to teach them how to read and write. And then when the news started going out, we started receiving commendation. And you go to the market and somebody telling you, thank you, or my son or my daughter is in your class. So, okay, this is good. I mean, there's some worth added. When we got back in Liberia, we thought it wise not to do something different, but to move after those who were working with, you know, and do similar things. We still do other literacy work. From other literacy, we added VSLA, we did part of HIV and AIDS prevention, and then the whole issue of going into TVEC, technical vocational education, and training came into being, you know, with all the bits and pieces of feedback we're receiving from our beneficiaries. It is, I think, for me, the biggest passport that you can live with a child, a son or daughter.
So as Jeremiah considered what he can give back to others, as we pause for this one, let us consider perhaps what we can give back. Let us consider this realm of generosity, of compassion and justice. Of not being stingy, but generous. Of what we can give back to our society and what we can give back to our world.